And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media for Sunday, November 14th, 2021. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith and Frank Vasher. My opening statement, the Lions don't lose, but they still stay winless somehow because of their awful offense and ineptitude. The Pistons are starting to catch a bit on fire, and the Red Wings finally beat the Canadians in overtime 3-2, courtesy of Dylan Larkin's two sharp angle goals. Ed, what is your opening statement?
My opening statement is that I may have just witnessed one of the most awkward, awful, horribly played displays of professional football in my entire life, and that is saying something. Um, Michigan thankfully kept their season alive while also trying to give me another heart attack in the process. And the Red Wings and Pistons are making progress, and the Tigers look to continue their build and off season. And yeah, that's how it is. That's how the way things look in terms of standing.
All right, and we've got them all covered. Frank, what's your opening statement?
Well, my opening statement, Michigan State was able to get off the mat with a very impressive win over Maryland and continue a strong campaign for the Heisman Trophy for Kenneth Walker III. Michigan survives a tough game on the road. The Lions, I'm not really sure what to say about getting a tie with the Steelers when, in reality, I'd rather they just lose.
Yeah, I would rather they lose too and still stay winless. Their stealth tank is still going strong. They're still winless regardless. So before we get to those Lions firsthand, this show is sponsored by the Viget Sports mobile app, where great fans cover, support, show out the display the hashtag Great Fans Covered on social media to support the app. Download it on your smartphone from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Sign up and type in the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest of the letters being lowercase, including the letter B in the middle, as in billionaire, for Stables Media. Also, a shout out to Cali Tickets. Visit calitickets.com or call 877-225-8425 to purchase a ticket to one of their featured events. That's calitickets.com or 877-225-8425. Get your tickets right now. So, the Lions, they played to a 16-16 tie at Heinz Field with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Ben Roethlisberger was out due to COVID, so apparently neither team could get their offense going, and clearly both teams couldn't anyway. So I have some bullet points here. When the Lions won the overtime coin toss, some Lions fans expected Jared Goff to produce a game-winning drive early in the overtime period, and I've witnessed that on Twitter, and I'm thinking they're crazy. Now, only a touchdown is required on the first drive of the overtime period, but the Lions stalled on it and ended up punting because, of course, Goff is still flaming trash, and head coach Dan Campbell still stuck with him the entire game because Campbell believed Goff was good enough to produce offense and win games. Even Campbell is showing his loyalty. Campbell has too much loyalty in Goff. The Steelers lost two fumbles, both of which occurred in the overtime period. The Lions had only one chance after the first lost fumble, but their second drive stalled, and they came up empty by miserably missing what could have been a game-winning field goal. The Lions did. Ryan Santoso missed an extra point kick, and then aforementioned horribly missed a field goal that could have won the game well short. That was well short. It wasn't even deflected, from what I can tell, from what I understand, unless I'm proven otherwise. He's not nearly up to NFL par as a kicker, Ryan Santoso. I wonder if Austin Seibert was injured and out for the entire game. That's another example, anyway, of why the Lions' rebuild is still miserably failing. And, of course, the running game was solid at times in regulation. DeAndre Swift doing his thing, although he didn't get a touchdown. Jamar Jefferson scored the first touchdown of the game for the Lions in the second quarter, and at the same time got injured. Moments later in the third quarter, Godwin Igwebuike, I don't even know him, scored a 42-yard touchdown run. He found a hole up the middle and made everyone miss. got to be impressed with that guy. The Lions should have stuck to the running game more, except they try to go up the middle too many times, most of which they inevitably got stuck by the Steelers' defensive line with no holes. So as we go to Ed and then Frank, like I said before, both teams could not get their offense going. Mason Rudolph was at quarterback due to Ben being out due to COVID, like I mentioned before, but both Mason Rudolph and Jared Goff were both trash at quarterback. Ed, let's start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's so much to digest and really think about in terms of going back over this game. I've heard the term "comedy of errors" being thrown around to describe this one, and it's an accurate way of describing things. When you factor in the turnovers, the numerous turnovers that the Steelers had, including right as they were driving down the field at the end of overtime to potentially set up a game-winning field goal, which would have been hilariously horrible to see. The Lions losing on yet another last-second field goal. This is the third time now this season, and again, it would have been from 50-plus yards. So that would have been something to see. And so to be fair, while you guys may be disappointed with the tie, as I was too, in that instant of moment when you consider the fact that, wow, there were so many instances where Pittsburgh was literally trying to give away the game to you, and you still could not capitalize. That being said, if I had to sit through another one of those Justin Tucker-like endings one more time, I would have lost it. So maybe in that regards, I thank the universe for sparing me that kind of pain and torment. Though I will say, I was in a mad mixture of horrible, angry cursing and unbelievable hysterical laughter looking at this game, especially once the second half hit. I give Detroit credit because, shaky start, not be able to do anything offensively. Thankfully, and I think it's worth noting that Dan Campbell decided to take on more of the play calling responsibilities, and it clearly showed throughout this game. I think it was obvious that the reason why they hadn't gone into such a massive deficit is because the ball wasn't put in Jared Goff's hands enough times to where he could have potentially made that dumb, mindless mistake. So I think the reason why that eventually Campbell's hand was forced, he knew that, okay, at some point, Goff's going to have to throw. We're going to have to come up with some passing plays. But they were content and more than comfortable of doing what they wanted to do in terms of trying to just run the ball down their throats. And in some instances, it had success. It produced the yardage that you saw, like, for example, DeAndre Swift getting over 100 yards, getting 130 of them to be exact. You saw the two impressive touchdown runs. It really sucks that Jefferson hurt his ankle on that play. It was like, the Lions summed up in one word, in one play. They can give you exhilarating highs, but also find ways to make it worse by kicking you down low. So that's what we saw there in regards to that injury. Santoso, my goodness. The fact that if he had just made the extra points, we would not have been in this spot to begin with. And then when you factor in that he had to try and hit a 48-yard field goal outdoors in the rain on a horribly conditioned field, yeah, you were just setting yourself up for failure. And it also didn't help matters that it was a holding penalty on that drive that backed him up, which really took away needed yards for field goal range. So that was just an absolute mess. This whole game was a mess. The Steelers, in my view, if you're fans of urinating tree, I think you've heard this phrase before. They played down to their competition. It was clearly evident. Even you could say, "Oh, they lost their quarterback. They lost their Ben." Okay, so what? Mason Rudolph, I would consider to be at least a bit more competent as a backup quarterback, especially compared to what the Lions have. But I don't know. Maybe he would fail to be a backup even on this team the way he performed out there today. I think in terms of what you needed to see or what you didn't want to see from the Lions, it was just it sounds like a broken record at this point now in terms of me talking about Jared Goff, because it is. But I just can't help but acknowledge and really express of how literally painful it is to watch him play. Like every single time almost where he senses just a tiny bit of pressure, instead of finding ways to maneuver or step around or step up in the pocket, he just runs backwards 20 yards and gets his ass sacked. So plays, decisions, moments like that, that's what kills drives. That's what pisses off fans. That's what aggravates your head coach to the point where he decides, you know what, screw this. I'm going to take control of the play calling, and we're going to keep the ball out of your hands as minimal as possible to give us at least a better shot, a chance of winning. Because clearly, what we've been doing as of late has done the opposite effect. So I don't blame them for doing that, and but it's just aggravating to a degree because
He
Cam
keeps going the
Newton,
wrong way.
not just that, but in terms of how Jared Goff's performing in general, like, is he scared to make a throw 15, 20 yards down the field? Can he do that more than once or twice or even more than 3 times throughout the course of a football game? Does it have to be all these checkdowns? Does it have to be all these underneath passes? Does it have to be all this potential worrying your risk of knowing the fact that he has baby tiny hands and he could fumble the ball at any moment's notice? It's all that, and yet in the back of my mind, I'm thinking Cam Newton today in his return to the Carolina Panthers, the first 2 plays, the first 2 snaps that Cam Newton played, he scored touchdowns. And that guy was sitting at home, and yet we did nothing to try extend an offer to him, a workout, a sit down, a conversation, a freaking phone call, something to where we could have negotiated a potential idea, plan, or contract, whatever it is. Because you mean to tell me that what we saw from Mason Rudolph and Jared Goff, may, please, between comparing that and saying Cam Newton that was justifiable cause for Cam Newton to sit out this long, yeah, miss me with that. So the Lions have themselves to blame in that, because I feel like if they had tried to do a little bit better in terms of their quarterback department, and I know people were saying, why don't you just put in David Blau? Put in David Blau. Put in David Blau. Guys, David Blau's not that good. He really isn't. So I mean, you even saw it when he got a chance to play in garbage time. He still goofed that up. So I don't know. It's called the Lions quarterback situation. It's just an absolute mess. It is a cow pie. It was like that before Stafford left, and it's now even more glaringly obvious now that Stafford's gone. So if this may force Brad Holmes' hand of what to do in the offseason next year, because the draft, there's really not exactly a well-known prospect or prospects at the quarterback spot that's dying to be picked in the top 10, 5, or 3. You know, what we've been seeing mostly is to talk about defense this, defense that, or an offensive lineman or something to that degree. We have not seen quarterback talk really light up potential prospects for the 2022 draft, which it sucks because this is the one time in the 1 year you need to get a quarterback above all else, because what, you did the exchange, you did the trade for Stafford, you knew what you were getting in return. But I don't think anybody anticipated Goff would be this bad. I mean, it's just so ugly to look at. And to know potentially that we may have to endure another full year of this, it's physical torture, and I don't want to go through that for another 17 games next year. So if need be, even if it means eating more dead money, I would just find some way to get the hell up out of this deal, release him, whatever, waive him, whatever. I just don't want to see him quarterback this team anymore next year. But it's not up to me. It's not up to Brad Holmes. And if his mind is already made up, then, there's nothing else we can say about that. But I'll say this. At least it's not going to be 0-17.
Right.
16-1 is still on the table. And if you still pull that off, you can still be winless, and you can still get the number 1 draft pick, guaranteed. So it's still a win-win.
Even if it's not a quarterback.
Hey.
Right. Frank, anything to add?
Oh, man, where do I begin with this disaster? I mean, other than the fact, same old Lions. For one thing, yeah, I do commend Dan Campbell for at least having the nuts to take over the play calling and run the football, which I thought they did pretty well with DeAndre Swift, with Jamar Jefferson, with Godwin. And what's his name? I can't even remember it now. All I know is
Godwin Igwebuike.
Igwebuike or whatever.
Eagle Bouquet, yeah.
Yeah.
Igwebuike.
I mean, when I saw that he scored a touchdown, I was like, oh, they're actually giving him a shot at running back. I mean, I actually knew who he was. He was returning kickoffs for the team. So, I mean, it's nice to see him get a shot, and he made the most of it. So, got to give him a tip of my cap there. But, of course, with the credit I will give Dan Campbell, this is where I'm going to hold him accountable. If Jared Goff is clearly not effective at quarterback or throwing the ball, and I know David Blau sucks.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing. That's the problem.
could he?
It's
I
like
was
your
going to
poison type of
ask,
deal.
which is worse, Blau or Goff?
I think
With as
Dan
bad as
Campbell.
Yeah, with as bad as Goff played, you can't tell me that David Blau would have been any worse, especially with there was talk that Goff was injured, even though Campbell came out and said that he was medically fine. And make of that what you will, fellas. But in the end of the day, and also Ryan Santoso, you can't. Is that your best option for a backup kicker? I mean, I don't know what the hell.
Again, was Austin Seibert injured?
Yes, he was.
Exactly.
Was.
Oh,
Okay.
he was.
He was. The broadcast had mentioned he was dealing with a hip injury.
Damn it. Remember the damn it drop?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking that quite a bit today, along with playing Benny Hill yakety sax in my head when I was following.
I still have my audio
I
bites.
was dying of laughter in the last 5 minutes of overtime. It was like, okay, which team wants to lose this game more?
Oh, Lord. But look, if Ryan Santoso is your best backup option, you're pretty much screwed. Guy can't kick. Is there anyone you could have picked up in free agency? It seems like kickers are a dime a dozen.
Remember, we decided not to bring back Matt Prater.
Exactly.
I wonder how that worked out.
Right, Matt Prater kicked one through the uprights for the Arizona Cardinals.
Matt, if we have Matt Prater, we probably have at least 2 wins already. I'm not even joking.
Right.
I'll say at least 1 win, but
don't forget another backup quarterback, Tim Boyle. Could he be worse than Jared Goff?
Probably, because what the coaches see up close and personal every day at practice.
Right. Because Tim Boyle absolutely sucked in the preseason earlier this calendar year.
And David Blau, like I said, outside of one pass on one play on Thanksgiving years back, what has he done since then, or other than that? That makes you say, that shows that he's competent enough or worthy enough to warrant, Jared Goff being benched for him. Like, no, sorry, you gotta give me more than that.
It's gonna go something that I'm gonna allude to with Michigan State, and I don't mean to spoil anything. Something that I remember Mel Tucker saying: if you're not a starter and you're a backup, you better be ready the second your number is called to make plays. Mm-hmm. The Lions got to adopt that same mantra. And one more thing I will conclude with the Lions. The amount of people on Twitter I see celebrating, hey, we're not going to go 0-17. GT to the FOH. Not going 0-17 is nothing to celebrate. You didn't win the game.
You didn't win the game either.
Play to win the game.
Pittsburgh literally wanted to give this to you on a platter.
Yeah, both teams try to hand it to one another on a platter.
As Roy Jones once said, I only wear draws. I don't like them. I don't like them.
And I also have once heard that a tie is the equivalent of kissing your sister.
Yeah.
Still.
Right.
But that said, 0-16-1, still on the table, still got a chance to get it the number 1 draft pick. And look, I don't even have much hope for when they play the Browns next week, even though the Browns got decapitated by the Patriots.
If Baker's arm is still dead, you might have a chance.
Right. And the Browns we're going to get to right now.
And between the OBJ drama and all that, they're not exactly the connected team that they thought they were going to be at this point of the season.
Well, it's my belief that Odell Beckham Jr. is a locker room cancer, so the Browns getting rid of him is no surprise. I think.
He went to the Los Angeles Rams.
Good luck. Good luck,
Or Matthew
Stafford.
Stafford plays now. Yeah.
Stafford, we're pulling for you that you can keep him in line.
Yes, I mean, I'm almost surprised that he didn't go to a Green Bay or Tampa just to see how he would have done with Brady or Rodgers, for example. But how about the Rams wanted to go all? When you talk about going all in, they have done that in spades this year. Trading for Stafford, trading for OBJ, even trading for Von Miller. So that's like, okay, if we're, where it's called, we're in LA. We got a billionaire that apparently likes to spend money. We got the brand new stadium and all that. So why not put our chips in the table? We got close, and people say if you had a better quarterback, you would have won that Super Bowl 3 years ago. So why not go all in? And they're really, uh, proving that point to an enthusiastic standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Les Snead's not screwing around in LA. Give him that.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's get to the Browns game. The Lions at the Browns, Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. We're going to go with Ed and then Frank, the Viget analysis and scoring predictions. Ed, you're up first. Go right ahead.
Yeah, in terms of what I could see happening, I could see this being a battle of two teams trying to establish the run. I know that the Lions secondary has its problems, but I thought they performed better. Granted, they were playing Mason Rudolph and not Big Ben, but even still, you've seen how garbage Big Ben has been uh, this year. So we might have seen a similar standpoint in terms of what the Lions defense, especially the secondary, could have done. Um, Knowing that there's still always that chance, that threat that Baker could do something to them, but I just don't see it happening. He's been dealing with that arm injury all year. Granted, his team may feel a little bit better now that from a cohesive standpoint, now that Odell's gone, but I still see a team that looks inconsistent at best. They have good players, but they've not been able to put it all together the right way. So, only thing I fear the most from them would be if Nick Chubb just went off. And I think that's Cleveland's best chance of winning. I think that's Detroit should try to focus on limiting that, neutralizing that as best as humanly possible, and just take your chances with your secondary. It's another road game, so we'll see how that goes. Man, oh man, I think if you try to figure out how to properly balance and spread in, still keep it run heavy, but I would say don't make it so damn obvious, because that to where the defense effectively put up the right scheme to stop your play down its tracks, because we saw that too many times today in Pittsburgh. So I fear that if you try to do that again, the Browns will shut that down more effectively, because what they have some damn good defensive players of their own, guys like Myles Garrett, for example, that can sniff that out and put that out quickly. I know the Browns should be at least a 5, 6, 7, if not an 8-point favorite, but I see this game coming down to the wire. I don't think the Lions. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Lions won, but I'm not going to pick them to win. I think, to me, they have a better chance of winning at home on Thanksgiving against Chicago than they would have in this one, but we'll see how it goes. At the end, my Vicket predicted score, I'm going to say Cleveland 28, Detroit 13.
28-13 Browns. Yeah, I think they're going to have a bounce-back game against Jared Goff and his puny offense. I'm going to pick the Browns 31 and the Lions just 10. Frank, follow up with the caboose, my friend.
Well, my Viget predicted score is going to be Browns 34, Lions 13. I just think they're not going to be able to stop the run of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson if he ends up playing. I saw what the Eagles did running the football up close and personal, so I don't think the Lions stand much of a chance to stop the run, and plus I don't think Jared Goff is going to be able to throw the ball downfield at all, especially outdoors at First Energy Stadium, which is not a nice place to play in November, mind you. And plus the Browns have star power on their defense with Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and a few others as well, so I'll go 34-13, Browns win.
All right, 34-13 Browns, says Frank. And that is our Viget analysis and scoring predictions segment for the Detroit Lions. Now to college football. The Michigan Wolverines edged the Penn State Lions, Nittany Lions, 21-17 at Happy Valley. Eric All with a short side catch and run to win the game. Stood to be the game-winning touchdown. The Wolverines are now ranked 8th in the AP poll after that win. It was a tight tilt. Both teams had troubles with their offense, but the Wolverines came away with a win. We start with Ed, and then we go to Frank. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Man, my thoughts on that one were, wow, I can't believe Michigan pulled that off. Wow, I can't believe their goals are still ahead of them. Wow, I can't believe their season is still alive, because it looked like I was watching some deja vu all over again, because, well, they had, it was a back and forth, low scoring affair. This was a game that seemed to be in Michigan's control slowly but surely as time went on, especially once we hit the third quarter. Things would start to get rolling. Drives are becoming effective. Defense doing their thing. I mean, from the onset, by the way, because, Ojabo and Hutchinson have been a pair of monsters for that defensive line. I think this is what both players, I should say, they have 10 sacks now in the season, which makes one of the few times in history, college football history, where two players on the same team had that at least number of sacks in the same year. I think Syracuse pulled that off a couple years back, but I digress. Having a defensive line that can get to the quarterback at will makes things so much easier for your defense in general, for your back seven. And Sean Clifford has got to be one of the toughest bastards I've ever seen, because we know of the injury that took him out against Iowa. I don't know how in the hell he managed to keep standing and keep coming back play after play after play with the hits he took. He got absolutely beaten up in this one. I think he got sacked, 6-7 times. Ojabo got him. Hutchinson got him. Colson got him. It was just, it was like a pinball out there. But credit to him for staying in there and still finding enough wherewithal to, keep his team in as much as possible and not make any critical mistakes. Because I know I saw some people on Twitter were trying to criticize, like, Sean Clifford, he stinks. He's been doing this, that, and that. He's been poor. Like, dude, he's been getting his ass kicked all day today. He's been getting beaten up by this Michigan defensive line. The fact that it's still this close and he's still in there fighting should be a testament to his toughness and what he means to that team. So knowing that, and despite all that, it was like watching deja vu from the Michigan State game, because Michigan was not able to find any productive offensive drives when they needed it most in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, big play after big play after big play was being made on their heads. And one thing led to another. Bip, bop, boop. They couldn't, for some reason, Jahan Dotson was not, an adjustment was not made to at least double or provide some sort of type of coverage on that guy, because he ran roughshod all over that defense and was the main driving force of them coming back and eventually tying that game. Now, I will say that, I'm not going to lie, I felt nervous after that happened. Way more nervous than I did against Wisconsin or against Nebraska, even to an extent more so against Michigan State, because I knew that the offense was doing something there in those games. Here, I had no such confidence, and it felt like, oh my goodness, this may be it. We're gonna have another bad drive. We're gonna turn it over. We're gonna lose. And then all of a sudden, on a simple pitch and catch, on a slant route that goes such and so yards, so however many yards it was to the house, Eric All probably made just one of the biggest offensive plays that I've ever seen performed by a Michigan football team in I don't know how many years. Maybe Roy Roundtree's catch against Notre Dame under the lights, maybe Mario Manningham's game-winning touchdown against Penn State. And that's the clearest two most notable recent examples I could think of where important game, important stage.
What about Roy Roundtree's catch against Notre Dame in 2011?
That's what I mentioned. Roundtree, Notre Dame under the lights.
Right.
But yeah, but in terms of knowing what was at stake and what could have been at consequence had Michigan lost that game, the significance of that play was phenomenal. And Coach Jim Harbaugh made sure that Eric All got the shine and the recognition he deserved after the game. But frankly, that whole team deserves it because people want to talk about Aiden Hutchinson, and rightfully so, of how he's going to be one of the top prospects in this upcoming year's draft. But let's not forget about what David Ojabo has done. He's gotten so many strip sacks this year alone. I've lost count. He's at 5 or 6 already. He's tied or is about to tie the school record for most in a single year, and he's still got 2 more games left. This kid has been amazing. He's been an absolute freak of nature. He and Hutchinson have been the perfect tag team duo for each other because, if you try to double one or double the other, or double both, one of them's going to get through, or someone else on that front 7 or front 4 is going to get you. So that's the beauty of having 2 outstanding players at opposite ends on your defensive line, because that creates so many problems for the other team's offense besides just getting to their quarterback. I think the defense wanted to prove another point because, they still had that bad taste in their mouths from Michigan State, and they wanted to show that they can not give up so many points. They can bend a little, but they won't break at such a high intensity away crowd in a big game the way they did against Michigan State. So they set a point to make a statement out of not just what they did against Penn State, but how they did it. And it showed. I think it showed all over. It's going to show over Sean Clifford's body for quite a while. So tremendous win. I'm pretty sure that's going to cut my lifespan about 50 years short. And like I said, their goals are ahead of them because if Ohio State is to beat Michigan State, which pretty much all of us are expecting them to do, that means Michigan, all they have to do is just win out the remaining games, somehow do the unthinkable, beat Ohio State, and hey, you can at least say that you went to Indianapolis for a chance to play not just for the Big Ten championship, but also for a spot in the college football playoff. And I know people were saying, Michigan State, they deserve to be right there in Michigan. They won the head-to-head, and I get that. If it was me, I probably would have done the same thing with these rankings. But I'm pretty sure the committee paid attention and was probably a little bit spiteful, knowing that, hey, listen, we put you at number 3, and you went out and had that performance against Purdue at this point of the season, knowing full well that you have a tough task ahead of you against Ohio State. Now, I still believe that if Michigan State just wins out their games, i.e. beats Ohio State, takes care of business against Penn State, and then wins the Big Ten title, more than likely they got a spot in the Final Four. It's just that when you have your losses, it does come down to timing and all these sort of different variables. So while I myself personally would not have ranked MSU behind Michigan in the college football playoff rankings, I understand the reason why, and I'm sure as hell not going to complain about it because, like I said, if you need to handle your own business, if you just not lost to Purdue, you wouldn't be in this spot right now to where you got to look over your shoulder or try to hypothesize what direction, what's this, what can we do, what can we do here. It's called take care of your business, and you wouldn't be in this spot. Now you got to try and see if you can pull off a 2015 and knock off Ohio State in the horseshoe to keep alive hopes of not just the Big Ten title, but a college football playoff appearance.
2015, they lost badly at home.
Yeah, it was. 2015. I thought it was
2016.
Yeah, because 15 was the Coughlin walk-off field goal, right? Same year as the trouble with the snap.
That's Michigan State. We're talking about Michigan.
Yeah, but I was just thinking, it's all going to connect into it. But I'm just thinking about. I was just noting.
We'll get into state next.
Yeah, I was just noting about the paths layout for both these teams. So
right.
Michigan's got a
Right.
chance. So that's the important thing. They still have a shot.
Yeah, and by the way, that Eric All catch and pitch was 47 yards out on 2nd and 9 with
The way he
3:41 left.
the way he was running, by the way, which he was playing with a bum ankle, and the Penn State players, the defense knew that. The fact that he still pulled that off, like it was like that video you see on the internet of someone playing Madden with Greg Jennings. It's Greg Jennings has a broken leg, yet on that same play he still runs about 100 yards and scores a touchdown. That's exactly what it looked like watching that play in real time for what Eric All did. I was amazed. I was pumped up. I was also laughing hysterically. Probably not as a different side of reaction compared to what I saw with the Lions and Steelers, but a great game and a thrilling finish nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank, your turn. Analyze this thing.
Well, there's a few points I'd like to make. First off, like I said, kind of related to Michigan State and how they got off the mat. Michigan really showed their resolve in this one. They got down late. They responded to adversity, made plays to win the game, especially that throw from Cade to Eric All, who, after the Michigan State game, I was actually pretty impressed with his performance in that game. I knew that he was going to be have a big game down the line. The other thing, too, notice that Jim Harbaugh played Cade McNamara the whole game. No more of this throwing J.J. McCarthy in garbage that was hurting the team badly. So you let Cade play, he's going to get stuff done. The other thing, too, and like I said, Michigan making plays to win, two things can be true. They can do that, but also James Franklin is the worst in-game coach I have ever seen. And that's not to take anything away from Michigan, Ed. I'm not trying to be a hater here. I'm just telling what, like I see.
No, that's very realistic. That's very fair to say.
Because
he's an absolute clown show.
Oh, yes, I have said it time and time again. James Franklin is a boob, and we saw that on Saturday. Hey, you got 4th and 2. Who instead of
control the diaphragm.
Instead of going for a fake field goal, why not just put your offense out there and make plays? Don't do this fake field goal stuff or anything else in game. I mean, this ain't the first time I've seen it, and quite frankly, as a football fan, it just drives me nuts that he wants to put his team in such position, and yet this guy is actually considered to be taking the USC job next year.
All right, listen. I swear, if not for the fact that there was a fluke of a blocked punt of a blocked field goal against Ohio State that got returned for a touchdown by Will Hill, and was it 2016?
It was Grant Haley who returned that.
Yeah, it happened on a Saturday night game. Had it not been for that one moment, I doubt James Franklin would be coaching right now, let alone still as the coach of Penn State, but while potentially looking to be the next coach of USC. Because I've never seen someone underperform with so much. Well, maybe outside of what Jim Harbaugh has done, but that's on a different discussion on a different level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So the Michigan Wolverines will play at the Maryland Terrapins Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on the Big Ten Network. We're going to get to Maryland's loss to Michigan State next, but let's preview this Michigan-Maryland game. Ed, you're up first, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, you're up first. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not much to really dissect. Maryland has a bad defense. They give up points like faucets give up water too easy and with these. Michigan, in my view, if they needed a quick pick-me-up for their offense to get some work in before Ohio State, now is the time to do it right here and now in this game here. Granted, it's on the road, but this is a 5-5 football team. Late in November, you have the better players, you have the better team, you have a far better defense, and when on point, your offense can produce and do the right things, put you in the right spots to win. So, the spread might be Michigan by 2 touchdowns. I think they have what it takes to win by more than that. So even though it's on the road, as long as nobody gets hurt, my bigger predicted score is going to be Michigan 31, Maryland 14.
All right. Michigan wins 31-14, says Ed. Frank, your Viget analysis and scoring prediction for Michigan at Maryland, please. Diaphragm.
Well, here's what I'll say about Maryland after I saw them against Michigan State. They are atrocious defensively, especially against the run after seeing what Kenneth Walker did. So now with Michigan, obviously with Blake Corum still likely out as he didn't play against Penn State, I would think he probably doesn't play against Maryland, and they ride Hassan Haskins, probably throw some Donovan Edwards in a little bit more. So I think it'll just be a lot of run the ball, keep letting Cade be Cade, throw the ball around to Roman Wilson and Eric Hall. He'll make some plays and defensively, let those two ends have some work chasing down Talia Tagovailoa, who, as we saw in the Michigan State game, when he is under pressure, he just seemingly folds like a tent. That said, I don't think Michigan's going to run completely wild all over Maryland because, for one, they can't be looking ahead to Ohio State the next week. I think what's going to happen is they'll probably get up by 3 scores, and Harbaugh will basically call the dogs off. I'll go for my Viget predicted score. Michigan 35, Maryland, we'll say 16.
35-16, says Frank.
That's
I'm
a
going to
fair
go.
Frank. Sorry about that, Taylor. That's a fair point that Frank made that I forgot to mention. Hassan Haskins continuing the workload that he's been getting the past couple of games, especially now with Blake Corum's injury. Had a very fine game against Penn State. He's had a great stretch. He's had over 300 yards, 350 yards rushing the past couple of games, multitude of carries, effectively being that workhorse. I want to see what they can do to drop some plays for Donovan Edwards because I see the speed and the potential that kid has as well. So take a little bit of that pressure off Haskins and get some experience for Edwards. And hopefully Corum will be ready to go by the time Ohio State rolls around next Saturday.
All right. So I'm going to predict Michigan 37 and Maryland 13, although some of Michigan's drives would either stall and settle for punts or Jake Moody field goals. I think Michigan's offense will be too much for Maryland's puny defense. So 37-13 is my Viget scoring prediction. So let's get to that Spartans win 40-27 against the Maryland Terrapins. Let's dig in a little deeper. Ed, you're up first, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead.
Well, Michigan State wanted to come out and prove that they were a much better team than what we saw against Purdue. And I think from what we saw from the offense, it showed itself in more ways than one. Peyton Thorne had himself a far better game this time around this week with 4 touchdowns, 22 of 30. Kenneth Walker continuing his case for potential Heisman status. Another 130, 140-yard plus game, another couple touchdowns. Jaden Reed getting hooked up for 2 scores with over 100 yards receiving. So this offense really wanted to show that they were much better than what we saw against Purdue. Granted, while they still put up 29 points, there was a lot of missed opportunities, and your defense didn't help you out on that end. And speaking about the defense, it helped that they were facing a much more inferior team this time around, more inferior offensive firepower compared to what we saw against Purdue and what they will be seeing against Ohio State. So, I mentioned of how this was the tune-up game needed for their final big stretch of the year. For Michigan, this was definitely the same case for Michigan State because they're going to need all the help they can get for this Saturday because OSU is a different monster, a different beast out of its own. And, if Michigan State wants to say, we want to be a part of those rankings, want to be in that Final Four, well, this is your opportunity. This is your chance. If you beat Ohio State, you'll likely leapfrog Michigan, and because you're in the driver's seat now to go to Indy and play for a Big Ten title. So if you can have somehow do here what you did in 2015, then that stops all that discussion and complaining about the rankings, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So, while Frank's camera is being out, he can just he is leaving and then coming back. So, yeah, Michigan State just taking care of business against the Maryland Terrapins. Kenneth Walker doing his thing, of course. Plus, the Spartans' defense still lacking, especially in the secondary, of course. And so, and we got Frank again. Good.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
My apologies for the technical difficulties, gentlemen.
that's okay. Yep. So, Frank, perfect timing anyway. You're up next.
Well, as I said at the top of the show, this was a nice bounce back game for Michigan State. I mean, Kenneth Walker had another solid day, 2 touchdowns, 140 rushing yards. But also Peyton Thorne thrown for 4 touchdowns as well. I knew he threw an interception late in the first half on a Hail Mary attempt, but I mean, that didn't have any effect on the final outcome. Jaden Reed, another productive day for him. But this is basically the get right game. I mean, I know guys that were injured didn't play. I mean, we saw Jalen Naylor still out. I thought Montori Foster stepped up very nicely. He caught a touchdown pass on that flea flicker.
Mhm.
And then also guys on the defense who sat out. Simeon Barrow, obviously he was sitting out that first half for targeting, but I guess he sat out the whole game with an injury. Quavaris Crouch was injured as well. And we saw Noah Harvey step up. He came up with an interception that killed a Maryland drive. And then also the defensive backs that were out too. Charles Brantley, he was injured. I mean, Ronald Williams, I know he's dinged up, but he still played. I mean, it was basically a game to let some guys get some rest, other guys step up, and kind of like what I said with the Lions. Mel Tucker has his philosophy saying, hey, if you're a backup and not starting, that doesn't mean you can just sit there on the bench the whole game. You got to be ready immediately in case I got to call your number and put you in the game, and you got to go out there and make plays. So give Mel Tucker all the credit for having his guys ready. He'd go in and play in a must-win game, and they took care of business. And obviously, up next is that big game in Columbus against the Buckeyes, which we are going to get to next.
Yep. The Buckeyes are ranked 4th. Kickoff is Saturday at noon p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. We're going to go to Ed and then Frank, as always. Ed, you're up first with a Viget analysis and scoring prediction. Yours, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ohio State has found its way back to form, that its usual form, the form that everybody was terrified it was going to be. I don't know if it took some time. I don't know if it was the loss to Oregon that lit that fire, but slowly but surely they've been getting back to that point of where they're recognized as head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big Ten. I think what we saw, while they've been inconsistent in some aspects, like notably what we saw against Nebraska last week, they're still far and away the best team, in my view, on paper in the Big Ten, and the reason why they've been hanging around in the playoff rankings that they've had so far. So I don't think, especially that they have their massive game with Michigan on the horizon, I don't think they're going to squander any opportunity that they have in front of them. So knowing what the talent that they possess offensively, knowing of how Michigan State's secondary can be torn apart if you don't get to the quarterback or give them enough time, and knowing what's on the line for both teams, my bigger predicted score is going to be Ohio State 48 and Michigan State 31.
Oh, slugfest, 48-31. Buckeyes, says Ed. Frank,
I could see MSU getting some points, but that secondary is going to be their harbinger in this one.
Mm-hmm. All right, Frank, you're up next.
Oh, man. I've had to really think about this one because I know in years past, Michigan State has gone into these games and there's talk of, they could pull an upset off, and then Ohio State flat out decapitates them by a large margin of victory. But also, this Ohio State team, while I think they are phenomenal offensively. C.J. Stroud at quarterback is found through. Travion Henderson running back. And 3 guys at wide receiver who you're going to see play in the NFL. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, who he returned from an injury, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's something that's going to terrorize Michigan State's secondary. However, the fact this is also not your vintage Ohio State defense. I mean, they seemingly give up a lot of yards and points too. We saw that against Oregon. Purdue hit him for some big plays as well. So I think Michigan State, they're going to be able to hit some big plays. I think Ohio State's especially weak against the run, which is kind of surprising because usually they're a stout team against the run. So I think if Michigan State is to win this game, they're going to have to give Kenneth Walker the ball a lot.
Plus, they have to play way tough defense and smarter. Got to stick to man-to-man coverage, of course, against the opposing wide receivers.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Michigan State's better off playing more of a matchup zone. And I mean, I don't know if they're going to have Charles Brantley back as well. If they don't, then that's going to be an even bigger challenge to overcome. But really, if they're able to let Kenneth Walker run the ball and kind of control the clock, I mean, this is in that win over Maryland. I forgot to mention that was actually their highest time of possession that they had all season. So maybe they're trying to get some things going that way as well.
That would be key.
And plus, you have to basically match Ohio State point for point if you're going to score against them. I mean, Michigan State's got pieces to do that, but at the end of the day, I just don't think they have enough. I just think Ohio State is on a much different level. I don't see this being a blowout, even though the spread is Ohio State minus 18. I think they'll hit on some plays. You're going to see some guys who are going to step up in big moments and earn some respect, but I'm going to say probably going to be like it was in 2014 when J.T. Barrett came into East Lansing and lit Michigan State ablaze. I'll say Ohio State 49, Michigan State 34.
All right. I'm going to up the ante and say Ohio State 56 and Michigan State 33. That's my big analysis of scoring predictions. It's the defense or lack thereof that's going to play a huge factor, especially for the Michigan State Spartans. Their secondary defense, again, has still been garbage. I think their defensive line is even going to have trouble stopping the Buckeyes' run. The Buckeyes are just going to keep scoring and scoring until the game is entirely over. The Buckeyes are going to play 60-minute offense. So,
well, Taylor, kind of what you said. I mean, Michigan State's pass defense is the worst in the country.
Yeah.
But if there is one thing about their defense that I think is good, it's how they play against the run. I mean, they were able to keep Maryland's rushing game in check pretty well. Well, I mean, I don't know if Simeon Barrow is going to be back at defensive tackle, and also Maverick Hansen, I think, is probably going to be serving a suspension because he threw a punch against Maryland. But I think the two ends, Drew Beasley, Jeff Petrowski, and Jacob Panashuk, I mean, they're going to have big games. One of them is going to have to play like Julian Peterson did in 1998 when he was just a holy terror and Michigan State beat a number 1 ranked Buckeye team 28-24. And plus your linebackers, Cal Halliday, Noah Harvey, and Quavaris Crouch, if he's healthy, they got to step up too. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep, that's true. So still 56-33. Ohio State's going to keep exploiting that worst secondary defense in the country in Michigan State. So that's college football. Now we switch to Major League Baseball, the hot stove. The Tigers, we're looking at starting pitchers John Gray from the Colorado Rockies and Anthony Desclafani from the San Francisco Giants. They're both starting pitchers, plus the Tigers were interested in Boston Red Sox pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez. Also, Justin Verlander, the former Tiger, has been working out for the Tigers among 15 to 20 teams. So the offseason shopping for the Tigers especially has kicked off with a bang. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, what do you prefer?
Well, you know who I want. You know who I would prefer to have, but I don't know if Verlander's going to be able to give us the right contract or the right deal, whether in regards to the amount of years or the money it would cost. Even though getting him and getting Carlos Correa would be the top two priorities in my view, it's gonna be for sure the two most expensive moves you might have to make, and it may drain your resources or drain you of opportunities of wanting to do other things, help plug up different holes elsewhere. But if you want to make your manager happy and feel that, hey, you saw what he did with the roster you had last year, let's see what he can do with it once you tinker it up and make improvements in certain key spots. I say go for it. Whether it be in the outfield, whether it be in the infield, or getting another quality arm for that starting rotation. So there's always that to figure out. But if I'm of the belief that if AJ Hinch is allowed more for input and potential decisions, if he's included more in this process, if it's not just Chris Illich and Al Avila being the two guys ahead behind the decision making process, then it's going to determine how they go in my view. So as long as AJ Hinch is involved, I'll feel confident of them doing something, getting something done this offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Tigers, they're going to have to beef up their roster, of course, like we've discussed many times. So, Frank, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to stick by what I've lived by ever since the season ended. It's great that they're looking at big names like JV and John Gray, and at the shortstop position, names like Trevor Story and Carlos Correa. But you still have to remember Al Avila and Chris Illich are the ones who are basically handing out the money and signing the checks. And until I see them actually put pen to paper and sign a big name, you pretty much just have to treat this as window shopping. And hopefully they can get something done before December 1st, because that's supposedly when the CBA expires and we're going to be headed for another lockout.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that doesn't happen, but it's looking more and more likely that it's gonna, fellas.
Yeah, and we're going to keep our eyes on that MLB CBA, right? As the offseason rolls on. So that's baseball. Let's shift over to hockey. The Red Wings finally beat the Montreal Canadiens in overtime last night, 3-2. So Larkin scoring 2 sharp angle goals, including the game winner. Also to beat the Edmonton Oilers. I think 4-1.
4-2, actually.
4-2.
4-2. Thank you very much. 4-2. So they also lost to the Washington Capitals. They didn't even score a goal. They got blanked, especially for not putting many shots on goal on against a backup goaltender for Washington. But the Red Wings, although they were not ready for that Washington Capitals game, of course, they've got 18 points. There have been a few games where the Red Wings shown that they were not ready, but they've been ready for most of those games as of right now, thus far this season. And as we go to Ed and then Frank, Ed, the Red Wings, led by Larkin, Sider, Raymond, and others, they seem to be on a roll.
Can't leave out
Tyler Bertuzzi.
Tyler Bertuzzi. Almost said Tom. Excuse me. Yeah, can't leave out Bertuzzi as well. Even though there's instances that given his current status and stance and views on things, we can't have him for certain games. Don't open up that can of worms, but it is what it is. Got to acknowledge that. But whenever he is available to play, he's one of the best players on the team, and it shows by leaps and bounds. So you can't forget him as well. But there's other players that get chances to become their own unsung heroes in their own way. Like, for example, against Edmonton, Vladislav Namsnikov, he had himself a whale of a game. He had 2 goals, which frankly proved to be quite beneficial as they were
including
the
a
difference.
sharp angle goal Nemestikov did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it proved to be the difference in that game against Edmonton, which,
Yep.
by the way, one of the best it was one of the best teams in the league this year early on. And while it was not ideal to get blanked by the Capitals, that's still a pretty good, strong team of their own. So knowing that isn't that too much of a surprise. But I do like the way that things have come about. They've won now 4 of the last 5 games. They've gotten themselves in a good enough standing to where I know you mentioned about the fact that they may be so and so points behind for like one of the wild card spots, but right now at the moment they're in sole possession of third place in the Atlantic Division. They're only 5 points out of first place. So through
8-6-2.
Yeah, and they got 18 points. Yeah, so the fact that they performed this well and the season's just started, knowing that you were gonna be a few months without guys like Verana, for example. So the fact that they're performing this well, and there's still, I would say, more games coming up where you can make noise, especially in interdivision games and whatnot. It'll be interesting to see how they make that next step in terms of making that progress from basement dweller to fringe playoff hopeful.
Yeah. No Verana thus far. Not very many problems for the Red Wings. Again, 8-6-2 with 18 points. Frank, anything to add on the Red Wings?
Well, one note about Jacob Verana is he will be out until at least February, so there's that.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had offseason
shoulder surgery.
Yep. We recall that.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'll admit, I've been very impressed with the way the team's played. I mean, look, you guys have known my stance on Jeff Blashill, but, I kind of have to give credit where it is due. Now that he's actually seemingly got some talent to work with.
And an assistant coach.
Yes.
And an assistant coach with
Alex
Tanguay.
Tanguay has been the secret to the sauce, at least from an offensive standpoint. Guys are scoring goals. You're seeing Lucas Raymond flourish as a rookie. I'm just going to go ahead and throw the prediction out there. He's going to be a finals for Calder Trophy. Hoping he wins it, but only
got to keep
it.
Got to keep it going.
Can't leave out Sider as well.
Yeah, he'll have his name in the conversation for that as well. Hell, I've really liked what I've seen in him. Even Dylan Larkin, I think, is kind of having what I think is going to be his best year yet. He did get his 300th career point on his game winner the other night, so just want to throw that out there. Mm-hmm. And even other guys like Tyler Bertuzzi, and look, I know his current status, and I won't get into it, but look, I mean, he's making the most of the opportunities when he can play. Okay, so there's that. And also, it felt so good to actually get a win over the Oilers, who were considered the best in the league, and shove it in their GM's face, who was most famous for saying, "This is a men's league and kids aren't the answer." Well, guess what, Kenny? Our kids just beat your team, who has the equivalent of Jesus Christ on skates in Connor McDavid.
Yep. Kids, it's kind of like the Ducks beating Iceland and the Warriors in D2 and D3.
Yeah, I could definitely draw that parallel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the Red Wings going to continue rolling with their season here. So that's Red Wings. Now the Pistons. They have won 2 of 3 against the Houston Rockets and the Toronto Raptors. Now, they had a bad game against the Cleveland Cavaliers last Friday, but Jeremy Grant, Cade Cunningham still doing their thing, and both their wins as of late have come on the road. Not bad, huh? But still, it's going to be a long season for the Pistons unless we're proven wrong otherwise. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, any thoughts on the Pistons?
Yeah, I like seeing Cade Cunningham making his development, shaking off the rust, and doing what he, getting himself into the groove of things bit by bit, game by game. He's going to have his struggles. What rookie doesn't? I think Cleveland was a notable example, and it won't be the last time that happens to him this season either. He's going to need those experiences so he can improve upon them and learn from them and grow with them as a better player, and be a better player as a result of that. So there's always that. I will say that it was nice to see Cade doing what he did against Jalen Green when what was it? It was the Pistons against the Rockets this past Wednesday, which frankly, if it wasn't the fact that these two teams had the number 1 and number 2 picks from this year's draft facing off head to head, this game would not be televised on any screen, let alone on ESPN television. So it was a nice showcase game for the two young Bucks to get in each other's faces. Clearly, Jalen Green takes it more personal than Cade does. Cade just wants to focus on getting his team better, make sure they win, whereas Jalen Green wants to get at Cade almost every single damn play. It's a weird kind of rivalry, but we'll see how that develops. Cade himself, he's been doing quite fine. He had 20 points in that one. He had another 20-point game, I believe it was, against the Sixers or the Nets the other night. While he didn't have quite the offensive output that we're used to seeing, that we've been getting used to seeing against Toronto, still held his own, cut down on the turnovers, and just allowed his teammates to take care of business, like Jeremy Grant. He had 35 against Houston tonight. He had, in this game against Toronto, he had 24. Isaiah Stewart's been going in and improving things. We're seeing some guys on the bench getting their shine, like Frank Jackson, Josh Jackson, even Luka Garza when he has time to get some minutes. So this team, again, it's probably going to be another fringe lottery team that's going to make a pick in the top 10 next year. But there are signs and there are seeds being planted that show that this is a team that's going to be much different than what we've seen in years past. And it's going to only grow and get better as time moves along. And, they have themselves an absolute stud in Cade Cunningham for sure.
Yeah. One dud that I've seen on the Pistons is Corey Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
He's been playing awful as of late.
By the way, yeah, it doesn't help. I mean, I get it. You're trying to space out the minutes that way Hayes and Cade don't get too tired. But you got to try to figure out a different route for your third string point guard, because that's not going to get it done. And
No.
also we mentioned it in the off the air in the chat, but backup big Kelly Olynyk, he tore his MCL, I believe. So
yes, he did.
Oh goodness, that was not what they needed to hear. Granted, this might mean a chance for Luka Garza to get some more minutes potentially, like between him and Isaiah Stewart. But that's not what you wanted to have happen, because Olynyk was going to be dependent upon as one of your reliable backup bigs. So for him to go down, especially this early in the year, it sucks. So pulling for him to have a good recovery, and the team's got to figure out a way to work around that. But maybe that means getting Luka Garza some minutes, maybe potentially bringing up Isaiah Livers. We'll see. But
that's another name.
But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Frank, anything to add?
Well, I do have to say about Cade's performance against the Houston Rockets. Goes back to something I've always said to my basketball players. When a big moment happens, act like you've been there. Apparently, Jalen Green didn't get that memo, because he decides to dunk on Cade and then get in his face and gets a technical foul.
For taunting.
But you notice how Cade just kept his cool, like, whatever, man. Then I'm just going to go out here, play my game, and look what happened. I win, you lose, ha, ha, ha. I mean, I think that just shows Cade's attitude. He's not going to go out there and try and get in somebody's face and talk crap and all this stuff. He's like, no, I'm going to go out there and let my plan do the talking, and I commend him for that. And I know he didn't score too much again. Yeah. He's focused on getting better as a player and making his team better as well. Give me 100 Cade Cunninghams 7 out of 7 days of the week, twice on Saturday. And also, I do have to make mention of one play I did see in the Raptors game. I know he didn't have that great scoring, but he did a nice little switch from his right hand to his left hand where he finished at the hoop. So I got to give him a little love for that.
Yep. When in situational plays like that, got to make some kind of play and execute it. So that's Pistons, and that's all the teams that we have covered. Oh, also considering college basketball has started, Michigan State losing to Kansas while Michigan was beating easy teams, of course, just getting started. Michigan State also beat an easy team in Western Michigan, the American Conference. So they'll probably just keep both the Wolverines and Spartans men's basketball teams will keep beating easy teams. We'll still keep an eye on them, but wait until January or whenever when the Big Ten conference season begins, tips off. So now we've got it all out of the way, let's close it out with a what we've learned segment. What I've learned: if the Lions stick with Jared Goff as their number one quarterback for the rest of their season, there is still a chance they will still finish winless, even if they have more than one tie. The Red Wings and Pistons keep evolving. The Tigers, good luck in the offseason. You're going to need it. Wolverines and Spartans college football, they just enjoy their season while they can before the end. And college basketball, like I mentioned before, wait until the Big Ten conference season tips off. Ed, you're next, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead. What did you learn?
What I've learned is that the Lions really cannot afford to go along with the Jared Goff experiment for far too much long. Unless he somehow gets hurt or has such an absolutely dreadful performance where he goes beyond the caliber of Ryan Leaf, I don't expect him to be replaced between now and the end of the season. However, 2022, you got to look at all your options here because I cannot take another year of this crap. Like, I barely lasted this long before I said enough. I'm not going to try and go through this whole thing all of next year again. So you got to figure that out if you're the Lions. The Red Wings, as well as to the Pistons, I like what I see from the young players. Still more room to grow. The Tigers, you better know what you're doing in terms of free agency. And for Michigan and Michigan State, it's simple. Your goals are ahead of you. Michigan State's example is more pertinent. Take care of business. You'll be you'll be basically what Conor McGregor once said. You'll be receiving some red panty nights. So just take care of business. Whereas Michigan, whereas Michigan's going to need some help, but still take care of your business. You'll get the red panty night as well.
Yep, it's all about taking care of business, like BTO would say. And Frank mentioned that, of course. And speaking of Frank, he's up next. Frank, what did you learn?
Well, what I've learned is kind of what you guys both said. Jared Goff experiment cannot go on much longer, but it probably will unless he has a Nathan Peterman type of game where he throws 7 picks and then.
And they signed him up to a long contract, Goff.
Yeah. So you're going to have to either see what he can do throughout the rest of the season and then just cut bait with him and say, hey, thank you for what you've done. Unfortunately, it's not working out.
Not much.
Yeah. And whether that means they draft somebody, which even the quarterback class for this coming draft does not look that good, have to probably go somebody in free agency and maybe have to wait till 2023 for a quarterback there. As for Michigan and Michigan State, hey, both teams end up taking care of business. Michigan State, your day is coming on Saturday at high noon down in Columbus, Ohio. I've seen them go down there and win before, but I've also seen them absolutely get destroyed. So it's time. It's basically time to either nut up or shut up, as former basketball player Kenny Goins once said. In Michigan, you got a chance to tune up against Maryland before your date with the Buckeyes comes a week from Saturday.
All right. So that's what we've learned, and that is our episode. Before we show out, this show is sponsored by the Viget Sports mobile app where great fans cover Use the hashtag GreatFansCoverage to support the app. Download it on your smartphone from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Sign up and type in the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest of the letters, including with a capital S and the rest of the letters being lowercase, including the letter B in the middle, as in billionaire, for Stables Media. Also, a shout out to Cali Tickets. Visit CaliTickets.com or call 877-225-8425. That's 877-225-8425 to purchase a ticket to one of their featured events. Gentlemen, excellent job as always. Our next episode is Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the diet on Stables Media. Subscribe to Stables Media on YouTube to watch us every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Like their Facebook page on Facebook Live to watch us, and follow them on Twitter at Media Stables and on Instagram at StablesMedia_com. Until then, for Ed and Frank, I'm Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313, and follow Frank Vasner on Twitter and Instagram at Frank_Vasner, and follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like it on Facebook as the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and follow it on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, watching, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power of the people, hidden with I, and we rest our case. Stay out of trouble.